Hello everyone, I'm the Worldsmith, and this is the second video in the Developing Your Magic System series. In this video, we're going to be covering the differences between hard and soft magic systems, as well as Sanderson's first law of magic, from which these differences and definitions are derived. Now, I want you to understand something important before we go forward. I'm not telling you what you should do. You ultimately have to make the right decision, the best decision for your story according to your preferences in storytelling and for what you want to accomplish in your story. I am going to be providing all the information that I possibly can that you might need to consider as you go about crafting your magic system. With that, let's carry on. Now, we're going to go over some general definitions of soft and hard magic, and then we're going to be explaining where those definitions come from, Brandon Sanderson's first law. Now, a soft magic system is more mysterious. It's got more mysticism in it. It's got a lot less structure as a general rule. And it serves to make the characters and the reader feel small, like the world is bigger than they are and there are powers that are far greater than they. Hard magic systems, on the other side of the spectrum, are more logical. They are generally a tool for the characters to use. Hard magic systems. The magic in hard magic systems is generally a tool for the characters to use, and that will be a consistent tool of the author as he goes through the narrative. Hard magic systems are more structured, and they tend to give the reader insight into how the world works on a fundamental level. And as a result of them knowing how it works, it can be used to solve conflict. Now, these definitions are derived from Brandon Sanderson's first law of magic, which I will be telling you right now. I'm putting it probably here. Now, Sanderson's first law of magic states that an author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands that magic. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to give a little bit of extra background on that. If you don't have magic very well defined and understood, when you use it to solve conflict in your plot, it feels contrived. It has a deus ex machina air to it. It feels like, well, it just had to end that way. It doesn't really make any sense for it to end that way, but it did because the author wanted it to. Whereas when you have a system that has the reader understanding how that magic works more definitively, that magic is a more viable way to resolve conflict in your story, because now it's not contrived. It's working within the bounds of a system. I find that the definition is fair to both sides of the spectrum, giving equal leeway on either side for what a given author might want to accomplish. It doesn't prejudice against hard or soft magic, and that's a good thing. It also communicates that magic systems are indeed on a spectrum. It's not a choice between hard and soft as much as it is the differences between the softer side of the spectrum and the harder side of the spectrum. Now, I want to expound slightly on this, make sure that you understand it, and give you some examples to do so. Now, a good example of softer magic would be J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. We've talked about him before. We'll be talking about him again in the future. He's pretty big. Now, in The Lord of the Rings, you don't really know much about how magic works. You don't really know much about what it is. It's a mystical power. It's powerful, but it's not used a lot. And it tends to cause far more problems than it ever solves. Most of the things that the Dark Lords Morgoth and Sauron do are done exclusively with magic. As a result, it tends to, again, cause problems, not solve problems. On the other side of the spectrum, a harder magic system would be Christopher Paolini's Inheritance Cycle. And for those who aren't familiar with the name of the series, that would be the Eragon, originally trilogy, now it's 4 books. According to the original plan, it was going to be a trilogy. Now, in Eragon and the subsequent books, magic has definite bounds on it. We know what its capabilities are. We know the rules that govern its use. And as a result, it's used to solve a lot of problems over the course of the story. It's used in combat. It's used to just solve generic issues, grow plants in some cases. There's all kinds of things that it's used for, but we know that everything that's done works for a certain reason, and we know how it works. We know what its limitations are, and as a result, it is used for that conflict resolution in a good, positive way. Now, for an example of something that's not really a definitely hard system and not really a soft system, something more in between would be J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter. Who'd have figured? Now, in Harry Potter, there's a lot of general uncertainty on what exactly magic can do. I mean, it can turn back time, but what else? Clearly, you can transport yourself with it. And so there gets to a point where, as you think about everything that magic can do in Harry Potter, what can magic not do becomes a different question. And that's never really answered. But at the same time, as you not knowing what magic can do and not knowing what its bounds are, there are also a lot of instances where you have very rigid rules about how magic is used. So think about Hermione saying to Ron, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa, right? That's a good example because we know that it's got definite rules in place, but we don't always know what those rules are. And so when Rowling provides you rules and definite magical abilities, she tends to use that in the book that she's in to finish to resolve the conflict in the plot. And she does that very effectively. Now, I want you to understand that ultimately what you want for your story is what you should go for. You need to decide where the type of story that you desire fits on the spectrum between hard and soft, with hard being rigid rules all the way along. It's essentially just another science, and soft being very mystical and powerful, but it just doesn't solve problems, it causes them. Or it doesn't solve conflict as much as problem. That's a more relevant way to put it, and that's how it is stated in Sanderson's law. But once you decide what type of magic you want, you need to develop it as would be required from there, according to the story's needs and your desires. A quick note on this. As a general rule, because it is less structured, soft magic systems tend to require a lot less in the way of development because they're very general rules, if any, and you use it very carefully. So the rules about soft magic are less about the in-story rules and more about how you can use it as an author. Whereas the rules that you would develop for a hard magic system are both for you as an author and for the story and the world therein. I hope that this video has proved helpful to you and given you some food for thought as you go about the process. Expect more coming soon, of course. You may decide that your story is better off, filled with mysticism and wonder, and as a result, you would prefer a softer system. Or perhaps magic needs to be deeply involved in the plot for you to feel some satisfaction with your work. And so, as a result, you will have a harder system and a more scientific feel so that you can have that plot resolution through magic. Or maybe you're somewhere in the middle and you want some places where you want to resolve magic and you'll need to set rules for it in those places. And other places where it can be mystical and wonderful and terrifying all at once. And that's fine too. Find your own balance, find your own solutions. Anyway, thank you for watching The Worldsmith today. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more, or you want to see the continuation of this series, then do be sure to click the pen and anvil over here in order to subscribe. If you're really worried about missing something, click the notification bell down below and you won't miss anything. Of course, feel free to ask any questions in the comment section below or discuss in general. I might be wrong about something. I would love to hear about it. Now, that's all I have to say, so farewell for now.